I wanted to touch on that just a little bit about the concept of boundaries and how it is dealing with the different dynamics of personality types, because the foundation of what needs to happen is you need to establish boundaries. And what boundaries means, if you don't know what boundaries, if you've never heard about the Boundaries book series, it might be a little bit confusing to hear about the term boundaries. You might think, what does that mean? I put up walls, is that it? No. What it means is that you're taking ownership for your own actions, your own attitudes, what you are responsible for. So many times married couples will get in front of a counselor, and the counselor will ask, okay, what's going on? And one of them will start out, maybe she'll say, well, he's this way. And he'll say, well, I'm only this way because you're that way. And she'll say, well, I'm only that way because you do this, this, and this. And he says, I only do this, this, and this because you're this way and that way. And the marriage counselor's head is going back and forth, and they just keep on going back and forth. And he's wondering, when is one of these couples going to take responsibility for their own actions here? They keep on blaming the other one. And a marriage relationship can be like, you're so close to somebody that pretty soon you start allowing yourself, it can almost be like a type of thing where you have trouble establishing those boundaries. What am I responsible for, and what is my partner responsible for? What is my spouse responsible for there? And those lines can get a little bit blurry, and you begin to, you fall into these cycles. Well, what boundaries means is that when you own a piece of property, when you own a house, that's yours. Your neighbor could come and knock on your door and demand that you paint your house red. But if you don't want to paint your house red, you don't have to paint your house red. They could try and manipulate you. They could try and tell you they won't like you. They could say, I'm going to move if you don't paint your house red. But ultimately, you decide if you paint your house red. That's the concept. This is my property. I'm responsible for it. I don't care how somebody tries to manipulate me. I own this, and it's mine. And that's what boundaries means, is you take responsibility for your attitudes, your words, your actions, your everything that's yours. You say, I own that. And no matter how anybody else acts around me to try and manipulate me or coerce me, I alone take responsibility for my actions, my attitudes, and what I say. And that means I will do what is right, what God has told me to do in His Word. That's what I'm going to speak. That's what I'm going to feel. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to walk how He tells me to walk, and walk in love and do what's right towards my partner, regardless of what they do. They need to be responsible for their own actions. And we could influence one another in that, but you can't allow yourself to be manipulated into falling into this pattern of blame between the two of you. You do what's right before you and God, and your relationship with Him, as you get closer to Him, will draw you closer to that person as you take responsibility and do the right thing before Him. So that's something that really set us free in the early parts of it, because you could have two extremely different personalities, and those are some of the clashes that you come up against. Is one's domineering and the other person. I want to talk about some of the dynamics really quick. Okay, is that all right? Let's say you got two extremes. On the chart that was back there. Don't put it up. That's fine. But you guys have done this enough. You've got two different extremes here, and one thing that you need to watch out for is that these different extremes can fall into these patterns as the years go by. The person that might be a little bit more dominant on the side can be kind of walking over the other person, and this other person has just one day they might explode, like happened to me. I just exploded. And this other person is shocked because they are happy. They're thinking, well, we have the perfect marriage because all of my needs are being met, right? They're looking at themselves because they're the dominant ones. everything should be happy. And it kind of tends to happen. It's a typical thing that happens. I've seen in other people's lives. I hear that it's a very common thing where one side is saying, I was happy and I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, my spouse just kind of explodes and goes off the deep end. And come to find out, it's some of these dynamics here that's going on. The way that you react with one another. Can I just say this? If you've got one dominant side, now you might not have a marriage, you both might be in the same quadrant and you don't have that dynamic. But if you do have that, listen to what I'm saying here. The person who's domineering is kind of a bad word for it, but you know what I mean. They're just the stronger one, okay? They need to listen to the other person more, okay? The other person needs to speak up more, okay? Needs to step up and, okay, they might assume, the stronger one might assume that if they're not willing to fight for it passionately like I am, that must mean they don't want it as much, because they're not as expressive. They're more internal. And that's a mistake. The feelings and the opinions could be just as strong in that person. They just don't go through life thinking that they need to step in the ring with the boxing gloves and that's how they win their way. Don't assume that because the person is not as passionate as you are, that they want it any less, okay? Make way for them if they, and on the other side of the spectrum, if you are that person that's the less strong one, if you do genuinely want something, speak up. Say it. If you genuinely don't care, then let the other person have it. But if there is something that you do genuinely want, go ahead and take that stand and speak up and say, no, I need you to hear me on this. This is very important to me. This is genuinely important to me. And maybe, their personality is, I won't fight you for this. I won't fight. That's not how I roll, but I need you to hear me on this. The communication needs to be there on that when you have those two different extremes, okay? If you've got the extremes where you're more closer to each other already, you're already kind of in the same quadrant, there's a different dynamic there, and you guys might need to challenge each other more. You guys might need to you might fall into a place where you're so comfortable with each other and you have so much in common that there's a lack of challenge. There's a lack of sometimes those little things that we get into where the friction from being so different can be a challenge. It could be a fire under your kettle, you know what I mean? It could be something that spurs you on to great things and it pulls things out of you never knew were there. And if everything is so great in your marriage that you might be finding yourself in a place where you're comfortable, I would challenge you that there's some conversations you might need to have where you're learning to challenge each other a little bit more and pull a little bit more out of each other in that way. So there's different dynamics that we need to learn to walk in when you have the different types of personality in a marriage. I did not even get into the love languages. Isn't that amazing? We got into his needs, her needs. We got into the personality types. Did not even touch on the love languages. Could have brought that in, but no. I think did you all learn something here? Did you learn something new? Got something to talk about later on tonight? That's great. I'm going to go ahead and pass this off to my wife, Liz, and she's got some great things to talk about the unity and dreaming together as couples. So take it away, Liz.
Yeah. One thing that I also want to note about the Boundaries series is it is life-changing. It's life-changing. If you are young married, I strongly, strongly, strongly recommend. I led a Boundaries Bible study a few years ago with some women, and across the board, all the women, even if they had a strong marriage or their marriage was hanging by a thread, walked away, and their marriages were completely restored, and it's highly encourageable. And this couple is really cool, so you'll have a good time. Or you could just be young married at heart, like Renee and I. Buy it and read it yourself with your spouse. How's that? So I wanted to share for the next couple of minutes a little bit about something that has been a passion of mine really since we were young, kind of young whippersnappers and we were first married. And that is about dreaming together and finding that vision that the Lord has for your marriage and for yourself and walking in that. One thing that I see a lot of times, I tend to ask people, like, what's the Lord showing you in your life? And a lot of times they'll give me something, but sometimes they don't. And sometimes what they give me, they're not pursuing. And I think one of the biggest things that's holding us back from really walking in that vision and walking in that dream that the Lord has placed in your heart is fear. And fear is something that the enemy attacks us on in so many different areas of our life. And I feel like this is another one. The Lord will, when he drops a dream in your heart, a lot of times that dream is really big. Maybe that's just me. The Lord has told me that I'm a pioneer and I'm like this. I'm just a rhino, like what Pastor Paul calls me, but I kind of charge forward in that dream, and I tend to dream pretty big. But even for me, when he has shown me something that I need to step into, there is an element of fear that coincides with that. There's something that the Lord has told me very recently that I need to step out of in order to step into more of the calling that he's put on my life. And I'll be like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this. And then the next day, because it's financially related, right? A lot of times these dreams they've got the finances tied to them, like quitting your job or moving across the country and just trusting that the Lord is going to provide a new job or something big, right? And so the next day I'll wake up and I'll be like, oh, I don't know. I mean, we need a new fridge. We actually really do need a new fridge. Whatever it is. So even for me and my rhino-ness, I tend to feel that fear too. Another reason that we're not allowing ourselves to dream or we're not pursuing the dream is because we're not taking the time to listen to the Lord and what he has for us. Rob and I tend to practice 1 to 2 times a year to get together, and I think we learned this from you too, and just set aside a day or two to just pray and worship, and we're not around the kids. If we have to get away for a night, we'll do that, or we'll take a day where the kids are in school, for the most of the day, and we're just praying, we're on our face, we're interceding, we've got praise and worship going, and we're opening up our hearts to what the Lord wants to show us. And I think we don't allow ourselves that time because we're so busy. You guys, we're so busy. Life is just, we're like a hamster on a wheel. We're raising kids and we're working long hours and we're, running here and there and everywhere, and we're not allowing ourselves to just stop and be in the presence of God. So to me, those are the 2 biggest reasons that we're not allowing ourselves to dream and then ultimately moving forward in that dream. When the Lord gives me a dream, it's oftentimes very, it's faint. Like I can't see the whole thing. It's just like a seed. And just like when you take a seed and, Pastor Paul just talked this amazing series about seeds. What was that, a couple months ago? If you didn't hear it, go back on the podcast and listen to it because it was really good. But it's like you take a seed and you plant it in the ground and you water it and you fertilize it, and you're trusting that underneath that soil it's taking root so that when it pops up out of the ground, it's able to stay in, the outside world and flourish, right? Same thing. When God gives you a dream or a vision for your life, it's like a seed has been planted into your heart, and the steps that you have to take for it to grow and develop is like a season. It's a season of waiting. It's a season of being pruned. It's a season of growing closer to God's heart and becoming more the woman or the man that he has called you to be. But when that seed pops out of the ground, same thing for us, through that season that we're walking through, waiting for those dreams and those visions to produce in the natural, when we're ready, when God's positioned us for greatness, they pop out of the ground and we can move into those dreams and those desires that God has given us. Isn't that good? That seed illustration, I love that. I love that. So what Rob and I do when we allow ourselves to dream is we write it down. And I heard years ago this amazing sermon about writing down your dreams and the power in putting your dreams down on paper, the power of speaking them out. So when we come together and we allow ourselves to dream, we're speaking them out, we're sharing them with our spouse, we're writing them down. And like Habakkuk 2:2 says, we're putting them in front of us as a seal. We're praying over them. We're trusting that this is a dream. Dreams are good, right? And every good thing is from the Lord. This is a good thing. And so the power of praying and writing it down and speaking and trusting each other's hearts with those dreams, God moves mountains. So that's what we do, like the practical things that we do. If there's something like the Lord has put it on your heart to adopt or to become a missionary or whatever it is, there's practical things that you can do to prepare yourself. You can start saving money. You can contact organizations. So you do what you know how to do and let God do the rest. Amen? So that is something that we practically do when we allow ourselves to dream. And I'm a dreamer. I don't know if it's just part of who I am or something that, I don't know. I just dream. I dream a lot. One of the things that I really want to quickly talk about that the Lord has showed us really powerfully in the last couple of years really is about unity with your spouse. We have learned to be in agreement because when there is not agreement, God's blessing is not on it. And I'm a charge forth kind of person. You'll have picked that up by now if you don't know me. And so oftentimes when there's a decision that needs to be made, I'm like, all right, let's go. It's done. And Rob is processing it because he's a thinker. He processes. He doesn't jump forward like I do. And so oftentimes I'll be running ahead and he'll be like behind me. And I'm like, oh, wait, was that not okay? Because I've learned that God's blessing is just not on it if we're not in unity. Right? I just want to tell this really quick story because we can all relate to stories, but we had to fill out this missions application for Gretchen to go on with her class next year. And I'm like, it sounds great, let's do it. It's a missions trip. I mean, God will provide. It's a missions trip. All right, let's go. And I get it notarized and I get it signed, and he's not saying anything to me, nothing. And he's with me the whole time through everything. And so I'm assuming it's okay. And then I kind of had this panic, like, this just happened like 3 days ago. I had this panic, like, oh, wait, are you okay with this? Because I know that the blessing has to be there. And he's like, yeah, it's good. It's good. He hesitated a little. So we're just believing that it's good. Yeah, I did, you guys. I said, did we pray about it? Yeah, so, well, we'll pray about it now. If anything, we just lost a deposit. It's all good. You guys are learning through us, right? That's good. Oh, you guys are a good crew. All right. So, Gospel Voice is the ministry that Rob and I have stepped into in the last, year. It's a ministry that the Lord put on Rob's heart about 5 years ago. And I'm going to let him share a little bit about that and how we had to come together in unity and agreement over that before we really felt the power of God move in that vision. Okay?
Well, when we talk about different personality types, that's really true. That she's a go-getter, and I am the thinker. Those personality types on the end of where she's at on the spectrum is kind of a ready, fire, aim type of personality, and I'm more like the ready, aim, and aim, and aim, and aim, and think about firing. And fire, There's just these different personalities, you know. For an example, we just got a new house, and I'm like, I'm not gonna repaint the walls. We're gonna paint them once, and we're gonna get it right the first time. We're not gonna repaint them 4 or 5 times, okay? And I'm getting the whole computerized palette of making sure that the hexadecimal numbers line up just right with all the different colors, and I want to map it out on the, and be able to see it. And honey, what do you think about this? And I turn around and look, and she's already got the roller out, What's going on? And
You guys, everything is white though. It doesn't matter. We don't need a palette.
it just people get things done. There's not really a right personality or wrong. Every one of them has their strengths and their weaknesses, because my weakness is going to be 6 months from now, I'll still be planning and it's not done. And hers, 6 months from now, she's still repainting because she, the third or fourth time, because, it's just kind of a do it and then, oh no, I don't like that. I want something else, and redo it, and but don't fuss about it. Just get it done, And so we've got these. We balance each other. You got to have that. You got to have that fire under your kettle. So talking about gospel voice, yeah, it is something that I've actually for years had this vision on it, but Liz just hasn't really been behind it. And it's funny how something like that could just sit there, and you're like. Until if it's just me, it's like I could try and I could put effort into it, and it just doesn't really go anywhere. And then she gets behind it, and it's amazing how it just goes, you get in unity about something. And I'm just amazed how all these different areas in our lives where we've come together and we've said, and it could be tough to agree on everything. But the areas where we do agree and we say, okay, we're both agreeing as touching this, and we're coming together in prayer and saying, yes, God, we want this, and we're praying about it, and we're saying this is our vision. We're both focused, we're both moving, we've set our GPS on this, and we're moving towards it. Then I see things just begin to happen. It's like, wow, there's this blessing that comes on it from God. And talking about gospel voice, that was something, we planned a trip to Israel. It kind of fell through. You take steps in faith, and just, it's okay. You keep those steps of faith out there. But right now, I'm so excited about what God is doing even right now. Some announcements that we haven't even made, but there's going to be a gospel voice Uganda that's about to open up, and a gospel voice Pakistan. And I'm so I can't even begin to express how excited about those things that is going on, the connections that God is bringing. The website is up, and everything is going, and we're getting out there, and she's behind. Most of all, she's behind it. So I'm like, we're unstoppable. Come on. If I'm doing this on my own, it just 90% failure rate. But if I've got her on my side and we're together doing it together, forget about it. It's a done deal. I'm like, it's 100% go. Even if it does have hiccups, even if things are like, okay, we tried, we didn't, we're just backing up and going a different route, and we're keeping on going, it will succeed. We will get these things around somehow. So it's great, very exciting with what's going on with that, and just in general, the things that we agree on. I'm amazed at how it moves forward. It's to the point where I run an idea pastor, and if she doesn't like it, I'm like, okay, well, forget about that idea then, because I want to be on board with her, because I want my ideas to succeed. So listen to your spouses. If they have concerns, genuinely listen. Okay, what is that? I've learned to slow down and just say, okay, what is the concern again? Because we need to get on the same page here, because I want this to succeed. And if there's reservations that you have, there's that accountability thing. Sometimes I think something's a good idea, and she's like, and it's like, yeah, she was right. Sometimes it's the same thing with me. I'm like, and she has learned to slow down, and we need that unity. We feed off of each other, because you've got that synergy there. where we could come together. When we come together, we could get things done so much better in that regard. So let me pass the mic back to her.
Yeah.
There we go.
So there was some notebooks in the little cute little bags that you got. And I was going to have you split up and go with your spouse and write down dreams and allow yourself to dream. But I really want to give way to having enough time to pray, because it's something that, when Rob and I were talking about this marriage conference, a huge part of it was just praying over each of you. I really just believe that that's something that the Lord's moving us more into, is just a prophetic and prayerful calling. And so I want to give enough time for that, because I know, we all have things that we got to move into for the rest of the day. But I really want you guys, I want to challenge you to write down your dreams when you get home sometime tonight or tomorrow. Write like a 1-year goal, a 5-year goal. Write down small dreams, big dreams. Don't allow yourself to have limits or hindrances on what the dream is. Don't think that you're not qualified for it, because the Lord will bring supernatural connections into your life. Supernatural. When the Lord put it on my heart to be a wedding planner, I had no idea what a wedding planner even was. Like literally, I didn't even know. I had no idea. My heart was that I wanted to bless brides. That's it. That's all I knew. And I saw that avenue through becoming a wedding planner. And I graduated from high school with a class of 9 students. There was 9 of us. And so it's not a lot, And when I was researching wedding planners in the area, this is back a long time ago, there was one wedding planner in Eau Claire. And guess who it was? It was a girl that I graduated high school with in my class of 9. And you know how many applicants I get for interns in my business now? I get so many girls want to be a wedding planner. But the fact that, and she had the same situation. It's kind of like a young girl's dream. I don't know, it seems glamorous. It's not, you guys, it's really not. But because I had a connection with her, she was able to, usher me in, and I was able to intern with her. I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing. But the Lord opened up that connection. And then, Pastor Paul let me be the wedding coordinator here, and I learned so much through coordinating ceremonies on site. And God will bring opportunities. So don't let that ever limit you. I have no college degree, and I own my own business. Don't think that you're not qualified. Don't set limits on God. All right? So please take that time to dream with your spouse and write down visions and put them in front of you. And when the Lord opens up, when the Lord drops that in your heart, it burns. It burns. You cannot help but think about it all the time. You just have to move forward in that. At least that's my experience. And then as you move forward and as you put it before God, the vision becomes clearer. So it's good.